Ever wonder what happened to some of those delightful characters you've seen on your favorite TV shows? Some people may assume that they've moved on to bigger and better things. Or maybe it's because the actors weren't being paid enough and just left the show. These are all greatly false. Have you ever noticed the leading characters never talk about those people, even after some of them have left recently? Or how that missing character's lack of presence neglects to affect the entirety of the show? What if I were to tell you that the world you think you know isn't the world you thought it was? For today's discussion, I take you deep into the study of the Void. We are first introduced to the Void in Season 3, Episode 88 of The Amazing World of Gumball, titled The Void. Introduced as an interesting concept behind supposed mistakes that get thrown away. Ideas, inventions, locations, even characters, especially characters, mind you, get thrown away, locked away and lost forever into a deep, abysmal, limbo-like location. And once they are sent there, the world just simply forgets they ever existed, almost as if they were never there to begin with. Gumball, Darwin, and Mr. Small break through reality to rescue their friend Molly, who was removed from the show for being boring, thus being labeled a mistake. Now, because she was just a side character, nobody, not even the audience, contemplated over her disappearance. But the concept itself regarding a place of limbo, where ideas go to die, is astounding in the field of cartoon science. Although, to be fair, they did copy this off of DC Comics' concept of limbo, where several characters, heroes and villains alike, are sent there to be forgotten, like the Inferior Five. Ace the Bad Hound and Mr. Freeze were actually sent there once, interestingly enough, even though many people today know who those two characters are. It still explains, though, why so many characters that had played critical roles in movies and television then just poof, they disappear. The concept itself of a character disappearing and being forgotten is not a new one in and of itself. It is commonly referred to as Chuck Cunningham syndrome, in which a character mysteriously disappears from a show or movie without any explanation, no death scene, just disappears off camera, and the characters and the world around them just go by without batting an eye. Chuck Cunningham is the older brother of Richie Cunningham from Happy Days, who appeared in one episode and never appeared again. A recent example would be in Ice Age Continental Drift. Peaches had a mole hog friend named Lewis. He played an important role in showing her what it means to be yourself. And he saved the day by stubbing Captain Gut's foot, giving everyone a distraction, which gave the main characters enough time to escape and fight back properly. Not only winning the day, but also winning the admiration from his peers, his herd, and his love interest.
Wow, I wonder what's next for me.
You peaked.
What?
You peaked.
You're kidding! After all that?
Yeah, sorry.
But I get stronger though, right?
Yeah, but no.
That's just one example, of course. So many victims have been eternally erased from history either because they were a mistake or they just weren't worth remembering. In the Lego Ninjago special, Day of the Departed, Cole was beginning to fade from existence because his friends and his own family started to forget him. If he hadn't beaten the ghost of the first Airjitsu master, he would have been lost into the uncaring void forever. He dodged a bullet, while the Airjitsu master did not. Luckily, Cole has seen and experienced what it was beyond the other side. He was able to at least remember him. Normally, the Void will try to blot out the memories of those with some attachment to the missing links, such as Timmy Turner, the main protagonist in The Fairly OddParents, forgetting his best friends Chester and AJ, his love interest Trixie, his not love interest Tootie, and many, many more characters like it. There are, however, exceptions to this rule. If at least one person remembers an individual or group, then they will be safe, such as Mr. Small wearing a tin hat to remember his van in the episode The Void, so he was able to point out to Gumball and Darwin that there was something fishy going on in town, and they had to track down their missing friend and their vehicle. Or Taskmaster, with his unique photographic memory, able to remember his girlfriend, the mutant with the power of the silent confessions from Doctor Who. This, however, can be dangerous because that character is dependently relying on one soul to cling to reality. Anything could come along to distract or occupy that life chain's mind. It is much safer to be remembered from a clip show. Now, I understand nobody likes a clip show. It's a filler episode, and it tries to make it look like there's a subplot to explain why the characters are remembering these past events, but it's basically just filler to the main story, or if it's like The Simpsons where there is no main series plot, it's basically a filler episode overall. But it does give us proof that any or all characters, locations, timelines, etc. that did happen on the show are canon with the series. They are not forgotten, they've just moved on. Even though in the beginning I said the majority of characters did not move on to bigger and better things, they were erased. If it is a clip show showing said characters, then that is proof enough to state the characters are not forgotten, they weren't erased, there is an explanation, and even if they don't share that explanation, they were still remembered by the main cast, proving that they did not fade into the void. That is the only positive I can find to a clip show. But I could discuss clip shows another day, of course. Another popular example is the Gaster phenomenon from Undertale. Most of us may know that in the video game Undertale, the Kingdom Science Division was led by a W.D. Gaster. He was the one responsible for the generators, the core, bringing all power to the underground. One day, however, an accident happened and he fell into the heart of the core, presumed dead until Dr. Alphys, the new head science officer, through mad experimentation, was able to reanimate multiple deceased monsters, including Gaster, and all was well, seemingly, of course. Disaster then struck when all the revived specimens grossly mutated into even more terrifying and out-of-control undead monsters. One remarkable figure which stood out from the rest was none other than W.D. Gaster himself. He is now commonly nicknamed the man who speaks in hands, as when he speaks, he does not have a particular language, but his own created emoji-style creations. He can be distinguishably recognized by his creepypasta-like appearance before you. Most of his background is unclear, with many rumors and fanfiction ideas behind him. The more canon approach being, if you type in his name at the start of Undertale or Deltarune, the game will reset itself, pointing out a possible connection to warping reality. Let's test it out. G-A-S-T-E. Let's test it out some other time. The point is, this phenomenon allows prisoners of the void to escape with the grotesque and unadulterated consequences, of course. An example of that would be Spinel from Steven Universe, or more precisely, the Steven Universe musical TV movie. She was originally supposed to appear in the beginning of the series, but her character was scrapped and placed on the proverbial shelf, as it were. She was lost into the void until the TV movie came out, which was Spinel's open window to escape. However, attempting to escape the void left her with painful and destructive scarring, both physical and especially mental. Her mind twisted, corrupted beyond repair. She could never fit in as a positive influence over Steven's life now. The only role left for her to play was the villain. Characters like this have to evolve. If they aren't important enough to be part of the show in a positive manner, or too distracting to even be a background character, then they must push themselves to the front row in order to get a good view of the show. Which is exactly how Rob was born into the amazing world of Gumball. After he escaped from the void, he soon realized he had no home, no family, no life. It wouldn't be long before the world would reject him again and he would have to return to the realm of the eternal void. He was thus forced to partake in the role of the villain, proving that the majority of the misunderstood wrongdoers in society do not pick being the role of the bad guy by willing choice. It is a way of life society has labeled them to be. And in the finale, when Rob chose to defy his new label in society in order to protect his home, the Void reached out at the last minute, and an immediate response from the world's alerting of a mistake needing to be rectified. So you see, escape from the Void is near impossible. The world they once lived in has rejected them, but occasionally it is often due to the universal maximum occupancy. In order to remain relevant and existent, new characters will pop into existence. An example of this would be the Fairly Odd Parents again. In Auntie Foop's debut, he stole the spotlight for Anti-Cosmo. They couldn't have two people filling in the same role as the sinister bad luck baddie, and just because Foop was newer, the universe decided out with the old and in with the new. This kind of thing happens too often than not, mostly for marketing attempts at toys or money. Just look at all the characters, sets, and dragons added in Lego Ninjago keeps spitting out each season. It is much worse on shows like Tom's the Tank Engine, Power Rangers, and the DC and Marvel universe when they go through a reboot. There are always new transfers into the Void every day, and public awareness must be made. I am personally keeping a Void victim Void escape counter in order to permanently remember those whom have filled joy in our hearts and were only trying to live their lives. If you or a loved one have witnessed an individual suffering at the hands of Chuck Cunningham syndrome or Gaster phenomenon, please let us know in the comments below, as we will do our best to never forget them. And thank you for caring.